Hello boys and girls, welcome to my channel, I'm for Classic and welcome to BenchART. So for today what I do bring in here, it is a surprise, even for me. It is Stalker Initial Edition. It's essentially a remaster, alright? So if you own the original Stalkers, I mean the Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl, or the Stalker Clear Sky, or the Stalker Call of Pripyat, just visit and look very closely on your Steam library to check if you have the Initial Editions versions. So basically you get access to a remastered version of the game, which essentially, let me just be honest about it, it is really good, but the first time I completed all the Stalkers, it was fully modded using the complete mode. I'm pretty sure that today we have much better and competent modes, but at the time I did complete this game with complete modes that already does some of the things that this remaster includes. For example, the draw distance of the grass is something that I did had extended on the complete mode, just like we do have in here in this remaster. But there is a lot of other stuff that it is included in these remasters, like for example screen space reflections, and also screen space global illumination, which makes a good difference in the ambience of the game and the atmosphere, which was already great, but in this case it is even better. So there are a lot of improvements behind. I just mentioned some of them that I don't think that I had at the time in the complete mode. I'm not really sure about today how the modding scene it is inside this game, but yeah, there are a lot of improvements over here, and not only just visuals. We have improvements for bugs and usability of the game. The game it is possible to play with a gamepad. So yeah, there are a lot of stuff in here, all entirely for free if you own the original games, any of them. All right, so I think it's huge. And if you really didn't get into Stalker 2, or because you couldn't run because of its lack of optimization, or if you think it is still too bugged, I think it's a nice time to revisit the original ones by playing the Initial Edition. Now the question is, how does it run? Well, first of all, one of the things that I immediately noticed is that this game it is ported over to DX12, which was what the hell. And yeah, just like every DX12 game or a Vulkan game, it needs to pre-compile shaders. I think it does a very good job regarding that. But even doing a great job, I still did did get like one or two stutters at the very beginning of the game. But it was just two big stutters and it was it. I never got any more stuttering in this area, for example, and it was very smooth. Apart from that, I think it runs pretty great. I think the CPU judge is a little bit high, around 40%. Yeah, I'm having like 150 frames per second, so I think it's pretty normal that the CPU usage it is quite high. But yeah, it's an older title, none of the less, but it still runs awesomely fine. I'm having like a frame rate completely above than 100 frames per second. I'm playing at 1080p, maximum settings, even using FSR on its native mode, which puts some extra weight above of it. And it also looks like I'm a slightly bottlenecked, but still, I mean, performance it's just, well, it's just great. It's running very well in my opinion. Watch me just boom. Okay, I think it's great, and I think it's time to move on to 1440p just to understand how does it run. Okay, so for 1440p, I also decided to go with the maximum settings over here, and everything is maxed out aside from motion blur, since it just makes it to blur more, and I didn't really wanted that. Alright, so I'm starting at the same position. So one of the things that I immediately noticed when moving on to 1440p is that the frame time consistency, more than the frame rate, it isn't really great. Frame times are going up and down depending on the areas that I'm traversing. I'm not really sure what does cause that, but that does impact the 1% low results in here. And made those results, if you look to 1% lows, it looks like it actually worse than what it currently is. And I tried some stuff, like for example, I end up this section having a 1% low lower than 60 frames per second. Then I tried to lock the game to 60 frames per second on my own outside of this video and using VSync, and I never saw the 1% lows dropping below than 60, or never saw like frame time inconsistencies or something like that. So it's something related with the fact that we are playing with a variable refresh rate that makes the frame time bouncing like you are seeing now a lot from up and down without any explanation. So it's a little bit weird, but it doesn't happen when you have the frame time, I mean the frame rate locked, wherever if you use an external limiter, I don't know, or if you use like VSync or the in-game FPS cap, it should provide you a very good and consistent frame time. But forgetting about that, frame rate is actually great. I'm having about an average of 87 frames per second in here, so actually at the moment 79, 78, so it's essentially a locked 60 frames per second, despite the 1% lows tells other story. I wouldn't take that too serious. Like I said, if you lock the game to 60 and use VSync, your game won't be dropping, at least based on the experience that I'm having on this specific area. And if you have any issues, I would recommend you to drop to the eye settings, and in worst case scenario I would enable FSR Quality, but honestly I don't think it's really needed. I think it's running great. I don't think you will have any issue, and yeah, I think it's pretty much that. But I at some point I don't know, because for example I don't know how this game performs during the rain, if this game has screen space reflections, if that applies to the rain, how much it does demand. I'm not really sure into that. That's why this video is called a quick performance lookout, a quick performance look. It's just to have an idea. And with rain, even if it is more demanding, like I said, you could try to go with the eye settings, or you can try to use any FSR. Actually, at some point we are at 1440p, so I'm assuming you have a lot of stuff that you can adjust to have a very good experience above than 60. So with this, I'm going to migrate to 4K. So 4K, my recommended settings, it is not the maximum one this time around. So I'm going to recommend you to play at 4K, high settings, and use FSR on its quality mode. Alright, so by using FSR on its quality mode, you are basically upscaling from 1440p to 4K, and yeah, you are not having the maximum settings over here. You have some sliders drop down, so you don't get as much distance in the grass or on the objects as the maximum settings. The same thing as the shadow distance or shadow quality. But I think the experience it is still very good. I don't think we notice that much that drop in quality when going with the eye settings, and especially when using FSR on its quality mode. I think it does an incredible job at 4K, so I think it's actually pretty good. So my objective with 4K high settings with FSR quality, it is to provide an experience above than 60, and it does happen. And it does happen in the same way as 1440p and the previous test. Frame times are all over the place again, so it's just you like up and down every time, and the 1% lows get affected by that. But aside from that, the frame rate, it is pretty good. It is above than 60. There is a good margin for more demanding moments that you can find inside the game. But yeah, let's just jump to the fighting sequence in here. But yeah, even during the fighting scenes and everything, it just runs very well. Also, VRAM, it is not an issue in here. It just consumes about 5 gigabytes of VRAM, so you don't really get to need too much VRAM. Same goes for RAM usage. It is lower than 8 gigabytes of RAM, so I think it's actually pretty good in my opinion. It runs well, it performs well, it looks good. Well, I mean, the textures and everything looks old as hell, but that's something that I don't feel that it was refined. It was mostly graphics, effects, and illumination, lighting that was very refined in this remastered. But when it comes to textures, I feel that it's mostly the same, or either that or the complete mode was already very much improved in that sense. So let's just kill this bastard over here. Okay, yeah. Haha, it's done. Okay, so despite the 4K eye settings, it is my recommended setting. I also decided to try out 4K with the maximum settings. And here it is. Let me just show you. So 4K in here, advanced, everything is maxed, aside again from the motion blur. And that's about it. So let's get outside, just for you to have an idea. So inside the Sidorovich bunker, we are having already 50 frames per second. So yes, as soon as we get out, we get to 40 frames per second in here. Frame times are considerably worse than what we got before. So that's the issue. And I really feel the frame time inconsistent while moving the mouse in this case. It's pretty bad, in my opinion. But if you intend to play as with the experience of a locked 30 frames per second, I think it should be doable. Or if you have a variable refresh rate screen, my suggestion it is for you to try 4K maximum settings, but just enable FSR Quality mode and see if it works for you. I'm assuming that it should provide a frame rate above than 48, for example. So for variable refresh rate screens, you should be okay with that. But honestly, I don't know. I didn't really try it out with that setting. I'm just assuming, giving the values that you are seeing in here with 4K, ultra or maximum settings, whatever you want to call it, and using FSR on its native form, my experience it is above than 30. So it is to be expected that if you enable FSR quality mode, that your frame rate really goes up a lot just by that, because you will be upscaling from 1440p to 4K. So with this, I think that's all that I want to talk about Stalker. In this case, I did use Shadow of Chernobyl, the Initiative Edition, because I'm really assuming that the rest of the game's performance, the other ones, I mean the Clear Sky or even the Call of Pripyat's performance, should be mostly the same, given that the engine are more coherent in between the three games. And the Shadow of Chernobyl have this intro sequence in here with a lot of grass and shadows, and it starts the day like this, which makes it more demanding than, for example, the start of Call of Pripyat, for example. I'm assuming that maybe Clear Sky could be a good test, since you have a lot of swamps, vegetation, and a lot of volumetric lighting at the start, so it could be a nice test for me to try out. But I think Shadow of Chernobyl should be enough to have an idea how it performs. And I guess that's pretty much all that I want to talk about this remaster. Hope you did enjoy the video. I will shut up in here and let you enjoy the rest of this fighting sequence. So that's it. Thank you a lot for watching, and I do hope to see you soon. Goodbye.
Обходи, обходи! Все, зажмуся! Валяй ему! Я его обійду, прикрий, понял?